Hey everybody. Okay, so today what I'd like to talk about is the role of women. Now, excuse me, there always seems to be a fierce debate on women and how women should spend their time being at home all the time, 24/7, or being these kind of fierce career women who are busting through glass ceilings and taking no shit from no man. Personally, I think a lot of this debate is quite superficial and it doesn't really cover why the debate has sprung up in the first place. So I want to address that here today, and I think perhaps in my next video I will do about what I think about women working. Now, traditionally, and I would say up until the Second World War, and that's when it really started to get phased out big time, Western women ran their communities lock, stock and barrel. This was their job and they embraced all aspects of it. Now, I know before anyone says it to me, oh yeah, no, some women worked. Yeah, okay, some women did work, but it was a very, very low percentage. It was normally, in Britain at least, it was normally working class women and the lowest paid women, or the women from the lowest earning working class households. So it was, leaving any judgment about that aside, it was a small proportion of women that worked. Most women did not. So that's where I'm coming from. So when I say they ran their communities, I mean that they didn't just run their households, they cared for their families, they looked after not only their own children or children in their own extended families, but children in the neighbourhood. All the children were looked after by women. They educated their children, they birthed babies, they arranged courtships and marriages, they tended the sick, often with simple home remedies as many could not afford doctors. They looked after the elderly and they laid out the dead. And they also arranged the community festivals and cultural celebrations. Now, women still do most of these roles today. It's normally women who are social workers, who care for the elderly, who are nurses, who are teachers. It's women who are still doing the vast majority of these roles. But in the advent of our modern age, beginning in Britain at least, with the Industrial Revolution, and really picking up pace after World War II, these roles have been gradually appropriated by the state. Now, before, women knew how to do all of these things. But what the state has done over the past 70 years, it's gained control of these traditional roles of women and carved them up into different piecemeal portions and served it back to women with some money attached, but with none of the power and decision making that would previously have come with those roles. So things that were agreed on by consensus by women of the community have now come under a very kind of hierarchical structure, for good or ill. So I think it's very easy from this perspective to see how feminism took hold in the first place. And I personally really don't believe it was because of men or the patriarchy or any of those theories. I think it was due to the influence of the state creating pressure in many different ways for women to abandon their communities, their extended families, their husbands, and finally the stage we're in now, their children. And the way that they've done this is through money, and the law of money, plain and simple. And this is one of the reasons why I don't support feminism, because I think it has encouraged this decline of community and family and of the role of women, basically, rather than seek to arrest it. If we look at the interests of most women, they cover basically broadly, very broadly. I mean, I know women are interested in lots of different things, but most women at some point in their life will be interested in the following: health and nutrition, beauty and fashion, crafts, and some particular cultural pursuits. I'm not saying men aren't interested in cultural pursuits, but there are some in particular that attract a very large female following, and they normally are an activity that has some kind of long tradition attached to it. So things like ballet, gymnastics, more recently ice skating. I know they're not solely the preserve of women, and not all women are going to like them. I'm not saying that, but what I'm trying to say is most women will like at least 2 or 3 of these interests at some time in their lives, whereas men won't. I mean, for example, health and nutrition. That's something that so many women, especially as they get a bit older, get interested in. Even if it's not necessarily nutrition, or most women know something about alternative health or things like aromatherapy. Even if they're not interested in it, they've heard of it. Whereas a lot of men don't have a clue about it. So that's the point that I'm trying to make, really. Now, I believe that wanting power is a natural thing and that women seek it just as much as men. When this need has a natural outlet, as I believe was more catered to in the way our societies were previously organised, then communities, families and nations flourished. Now, I think feminism has capitalised on this sense of loss that women have felt from being severed from their traditional roles, to trying to push them into the workplace and gain power that way. And doing this only ends up serving the current system we find ourselves in, which is, I believe, is against women personally. Now, this went on, this women having these traditional roles, it went on a lot later than many of us realise, and I think many of us are told. For example, my own grandmother, who was the mother of 5 children, was apparently often called upon in her very traditional working class community to deliver babies, and that happened all the way through the 1950s. So even the reason I say after in the 1950s is because of the NHS was in place by then, but people were still using these old methods until for quite a while afterwards. So what I'm trying to say is I think that reclaiming these roles is something for us to strive towards. At present, I think a good start is for women to build skills in their particular area of expertise or interest, and I sincerely believe that women are less skilled than they were even a generation ago, and definitely more than we were 2 generations ago. We've lost such a lot through industrialisation and technology, and we don't know, and I mean as women, we don't know how to do anything anymore. So many women don't know how to put a patch on clothes or knit a scarf or make bread and things, things that our grandmothers and great grandmothers would have found very basic. So I think that we've lost touch with ourselves as women. Now, that's all I've got to say about that, really, but I think this moves into quite nicely talking about women working, which is something I'll say for my next video. But as I've said, I think reclaiming our ancient skill set is a very, very good place to start. Anyway, that's all I've got to say for today. Thanks for listening. Bye.